Hello everyone, and welcome to our April Shotsuki Hoyo Memorial Service. Today we honor family members and friends whose anniversary of their passing is in the month of April, and allow ourselves to appreciate how much we are indebted to the many loved ones who we have lost. Today's service will be conducted by our supervising minister, Reverend Dennis Fujimoto from the Buddhist Temple of Alameda. Let us begin with quiet meditation. Please sit quietly and place your hands together in Gasho, since they will ring the bell to begin and to end the meditation.
Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida.
Please stand for the opening gatha, God Jing's Journey on page 196 in the Purple Book. The reading of the Threefold Refuge on page 10. Difficult is it to receive a human form, now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Dharma of the Buddha, now we hear it. If we do not cross over to the truth in the present life, in what life shall we cross over? Let us with sincerity and true reverence take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we together with all sentient beings awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of Amida Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we together with all sentient beings enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we together with all sentient beings become unison true accord in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu.
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 The names of the Shotsukihoyo honorees for this month will now be read. The family members and friends observing Shotsukihoyo, please come forward to Oshoko during the reading of the names. Mayu Furuta, Iwazo Hamamoto, Sue Hayashi, Grace Lee, Kumaki Matsuda, Shinsuke Morita, Toshio Morita, Hatsuno Okura, Ellen Fumi Sato, Suikaru Shimizu, Yukuno Shimizu, Toyotaro Suyoka, Kazaburo Takao, Minosuke Watanabe, Seisu Yamasaki, Tomoe Ito, Tomiko Hayakawa, James Murakami, Brad Honda, Lily Okamoto, George Okamoto, Florence Kawaoka, Frank Noguchi, Bill Kakao, Robert Hall, George Masao Masada, Salome Shimizu, Jim Yokayama, Rose Furuzawa, Chikayo Masuoka, Yasaburo Kimura, Miki Sugimoto, Sam Shigeru Suramoto, Iichi Yamamoto, Sune Matsuda, Yuiko Furusho, Eileen Fujimoto, Todd Iwamoto, Dr. Ralph Toro Mitalai, Hiroko Abiko, Leanne Yoshiko Maoka, Namo Amida Butsu.
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 Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Reverend Fujimoto will continue the service with a dedication and sutra chanting. Sambujo on page 24 and Amida Kyo on page 103, the first half.
Today, on the occasion of this Shotsuki service for the month of April, members of our temple families have reverently come before Amida Buddha in memory of their beloved. With deepest reverence and thankfulness for the all-embracing wisdom and compassion of Amida, we reaffirm the three homages. Namo Kie Butsu, Namo Kie Ho, Namo Kie So. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Please repeat the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
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 Namo Amida Butsu. 美術機構独如来ビクシュ1250人区改正大アラカン中小知識長老者理法マカ保険年マカカ小マカカ千年マカクチラリハタシュリハンダガナンダアナンダアゴラゴモンアダイミンズルナラダカルナイマカゴヒナアクラアルルナノゼト将来でしロショボサツマカサツムンジュシリボジアイタボサツエンダガダイボサツ上昇人ボサツ上尿ゼト将来ボサツ住職大官人と無料商店大修復理人仏語小老者理法修正最高果十万六仏道無正解妙罰極楽合道無仏語阿弥陀根源在説法者理法色が公の意極楽道国修上無宿安住小楽公明極楽仏者理法極楽国土七十何十七十ナモ七十五十改正司法修相異名成功理国明圧極楽武者理法極楽国土無執行地悪六水十万五中地帯順に根社無事四辺回路今後ルリハリ五条道具老各役員今後ルリハリ社交釈州名の二本直視地中年下大名社林小式小公大式陽公釈式釈公百式百公微妙高血社理法極楽国土上十行税空六将軍武者理法異部国土調査見学黄金二次中夜六時二有万だらけ広告修上上位昇誕各位英国上修行家空用多法十万六分即位主義時天道本国本直教業社理法極楽国土上十行税空六将軍仏師社理法異特徴修十金の雑式史上百国弱王社理下領民が空行史上聖書修正長や六時水和下本公延長合本合力式法大部合唱道運行税東方合同修正門税本に開始年仏年法年尊社理法の 木理七超実税財宝少々少林社外部国土部三幕集社理法義部国土部小三幕上司名家教流実税小中小大税阿弥陀仏力量本性有縁芸小三社理法義部国土理不水道小本高級両方南無水の医療百戦十角同時空三門税本社大事年上年仏年法年創始新社理法
We will now listen to a Dharma message from our supervising minister, Sensei Fujimoto.
Namanda, 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 namanda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be back here, and it's always nice to see who comes for the Shotsuki service and additional family members beyond the regulars, the normal people that are able to come to each service. Shotsuki brings their families, and it's a nice part of our Shin Buddhist tradition to be able to come on the first Sunday to acknowledge the people that we have lost. And so I thank you, the families that are here, in particular for today's service. For myself, it's always special. I get to see who comes and who's connected to which names, and certainly today we had a large number of people coming up to offer incense, and it's always very special to see. One of the things I wanted to mention before we begin the Dharma message, I wanted to thank you for how the sutra chanting went today, and there were a couple places where I couldn't swallow. So I had to stop completely. But your voices continued on, and that's how it's supposed to go. You don't stop just because Sensei stopped, right? And you keep going, and I catch up to you. So you're kind of holding my place as I adapt my swallowing and my breath. And other places where I think there are places where the common name is Shari-hotsu, and I'm saying Shari-ho, and I break instead of saying the final syllable. And a lot of people are trying to say Shari-hotsu, and you're adding the additional syllable, so then you're a half a beat behind me. So it's okay to abbreviate that and keep up the pace of the chant. Okay, so there's certain places where, that's the normal, where there's a tsu at the end of the line, and I'm just kind of bypassing that. So I'll say shari ho, and then I'll continue on with the next line. And the people who are saying shari ho tsu, then you guys are going, wait a minute, and trying to catch up with me. And I think that's one of the difficulties of the Amida Kyo. But when we get accustomed to it, then we keep up the pace of the chant. So that's chanting lesson for today. Okay. So for today, I wanted to share a talk on the bird with two heads. Okay, and so this is one of the, I think it's a Jataka tale, and when you look at Jataka tales, there are a number of different stories in Buddhist lore, and sometimes you see familiar or similar stories, and the themes of the Jataka tales of Buddhism were carried over and became Aesop's tales that we are sometimes familiar with in other cultures. If you look at the front of our altar table, the main altar table, the very colorful panels, when you come up to offer incense, you might be able to see one of the panels has a two-headed bird in there, and that's, now you gotta look up. But this is from the story of the two-headed bird, and so I want to share this story with you today. Every now and then, I think it's a wonderful story. So I'll tell you the story of the two-headed birds. So kind of a strange bird. So once upon a time, there was this odd-looking bird, and it had two heads and lived by the river, and so two necks and two separate heads, but had the same one body, one stomach that they shared. Excuse me. And it looked odd to even the other animals, so we get teased. Even the other animals would look as, gee, is that a bird or a monster? Making fun of them, maybe it's not a bird, maybe it's just an alien that doesn't even belong in our world. And so they're making fun of them, and don't get too close to it, might be dangerous or something like that. And so they're laughing at this bird and making fun of them. And so they felt, the two heads felt badly a little bit, and at least they had each other, So there was a time they were walking along the banks of the river, and a nice piece of fruit had fallen down, and one of the heads said, "Oh, look at this piece of fruit. How lucky I am." And so he was so fortunate. The gods must be looking after me, so I get this wonderful piece of fruit. And so he started eating this fruit and just enjoying it, and slurping the fruit down. And so the other head said, "Wait a minute, what about me? Don't I get to have some of this fruit?" And so the first bird said, "Don't be silly. We have the same one body and one stomach. Whatever I eat, you'll get a part of it eventually." So he just kept gobbling down this wonderful fruit and left out the second head. So the second head felt badly, why don't I get some of this gochiso, such treats today? And so he didn't get to have any of this fruit. And the first head is just enjoying the meal and thought it was so wonderful. So the second head felt badly that it wasn't shared, and he remembered this, right? So there was another day they were walking, so the second head saw this different kind of fruit, and they knew it wasn't good fruit. It was poison. So I'm gonna get the first head back. I'm gonna eat this poisonous fruit. The first head says, wait a minute. We know it's poison, so don't eat it. So, well, you didn't share with me, so I'm gonna eat this, and you could just watch me eat this poisonous fruit. But you know we're both gonna die. That's how it's gonna go. So the second head ate that fruit. They got sick, and both heads and the bird body crumpled to the shore of the beach and it died. Okay, sad story, difficult story. So the moral of the story is to never let your ego come between your relationships. So our ego attachments are always the cause of so many of our suffering that we have to go through in our lives. And so this is the story of the bird with the two heads. Okay? So sometimes when you look up, the Jataka tales, it might come up the storybook or even a little video, and it's kind of cartoonish, something you might see watching with your children, young children, on a Saturday afternoon or something like that. And so the story itself kind of gets dismissed. So I was thinking, how would this story play out in our adult world, and trying to think of what if we just pick examples of stories that we've heard, and how would this reflect upon these stories, just stories in the news, okay? And so I have a couple of stories for today, and one of the stories I mentioned to my wife Charmin. So there's a barbecue place in Berkeley, some of you might know, Everett and Jones, okay? It's a very well-known barbecue place, and so the mother of this family had started this Everett and Jones barbecue. It's a very hot, spicy, really good barbecue. So when Charmin was finally able to join me at the temple in Alameda, we decided to let's go out and check some places out and kind of become familiar with living in the East Bay. So we decided that'd be a good chance to go. And it's in Berkeley on San Pablo and University Avenue. Just an old-time place, people walk up and order. There's always the line, seems to be. So we ordered, and you get like a sampler dish, and you get ribs and tri-tip and chicken, and they're very good sauce. You can pick, mild or medium or hot, and we like hot, so we got the hot sauce. We even bought a jar of sauce to take home with us. So we enjoyed the day, right? And when we went, the mother who founded this place, she was there overseeing, watching all the workers, and not so much helping out, but just checking everybody and all the orders are going out properly and things. And we just had a wonderful time. And just recently, I think during the pandemic, the mother had passed away, and she had 3 daughters, and they kind of made a pact, a promise to each other that they'll keep up the restaurant and the legacy of their mother. They even opened up a second restaurant in Jack London Square in Oakland. Very nice, fancy place compared to the first place that we went to. And so they opened this second place, and they were working. And it's so hard for all the restaurants through the pandemic just to keep going. And they were trying so hard to keep up their promise to each other and their memory of their mother. And just a couple of weeks ago, they had a robbery, and the same robbers came back the very next night, so twice in a row, and they caught it on video. They could see it's the same people. The first time they came in and they ransacked the place and robbed, and they couldn't get into the safe. So the second night they came with a plan to be able to open the safe as well. So 2 nights in a row, same people, you could recognize them on the video. And they broke in again and stole even more, and took so much money and supplies and things, and so you felt badly for them. And so they had tried so hard, but the robbers didn't care, right? Just getting what they wanted to have. And so I was wondering, is this an example of this 2-headed bird? one side's working so hard, the other has no concern for their efforts, for their relationship to each other, their mom, all these kind of things. So you decide, is that an example of the two-headed bird? Okay. So another story, as I was flipping through the news, there was a segment, a video, and it got attention because there was a English television show, and they were showing, it's like one of those morning shows, and they had a medical segment, and a medical person was talking about breast cancer and how to check yourselves. And there's a couple people sitting at their morning table with a cup of coffee, and she brought someone, an assistant, and she had her robe on, and she had her disrobe. And this was why it made the news, that she was bared herself on the TV screen. So it's not really something you see on every day. So it was unusual. They didn't blur anything, they didn't cover anything. And so the medical person is showing everyone how you're supposed to check yourself for your breast exam to make sure you didn't have breast cancer, signs of breast cancer, and to kind of be uniform, to turn be in front of the mirror, and how you check yourself, turn profile, and then turn to the other profile, and all these things. And people on the couch were saying, oh, I didn't know some of these things. I wasn't as thorough as I guess I should be, and things like this. And they were taking the time to show how to properly check yourself. And later in the comments, people were saying how good it was to be able to, in a sense, elevate health and wellness over, your concern of to cover yourself or not to, to be, rather than to think to be proper or discreet or something on the television screen. So maybe it was a case where they chose to show this segment to have compassion for others, for self and others, rather than to be overly concerned about social norms and image of self and things like this. So it was very unusual. Maybe they were pointing it out. It became news because it wasn't the norm that we are accustomed to in the United States. Maybe it's a little bit more common in other countries, or in England, where the show was based upon. So maybe another example of two different perspectives. Is this two-headed bird or not? Okay, final story, third story. There was a Pokemon trade card games tournament. I don't even know what that means. So this comes some kind of Pokemon tournament in North Carolina. And so teenagers came to this tournament to participate. And as part of the tournament, there's judges, and they were interviewed and asked to introduce themselves. And they didn't know that this was going to happen. But the judge asked, what are your preferred pronouns? Okay. And so one boy, didn't know he was going to be asked, so he didn't mind participating, but he couldn't think of them immediately. He said, well, he, him, and he couldn't think of the third one that he's supposed to use, so he kind of embarrassedly laughed. And then he said, he, him, his. And so, but because he laughed, the judge thought it was kind of disrespectful. So he got disqualified and was sent home. He was so disappointed. At least he had spent $800 of his own money to come to participate in this tournament and travel, took time off from school to participate, and he's just disqualified before the tournament even started. So, some of the comments from other people who saw this segment that, they were asked to name the pronouns in the sense of trying to be inclusive, right? But he was excluded from this whole tournament because he couldn't answer the way the judge wanted him to answer. And so people thought, the judge was being exclusive. The judge had his own agenda, rather than letting the boy participate. So the majority thought the judge was wrong. They should have sent the judge home, not the boy. Okay? So what do you think? Is that another example of two-headed bird? So I think there are examples all around us, all over the world. You know, it's not just some cartoon story, you know, that kids should listen to, that we should share with our 5-year-olds or something. But we see this happening all the time. We see this whether, you know, it's a war between countries or something that happens at Safeway, you know, something happens in our own home. So these examples of the two-headed bird surround us all the time. Beyond our own self-concern and our personal perspective, you know, we see this two sides to one story, and this happens, and this interplay happens all the time. And I think the story helps us to be reflective of our own self, how we think, our own self-nature, so we become more aware of how we are as people, how we carry ourselves as people. So thank you very much for letting me share this Dharma message with you. Please join me in Gassho, and we'll conclude. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you.
Thank you, Sensei, for your thoughtful message. Please stand for the closing gatha, Seiya, on page 226 in the Purple Book. Are there any announcements? This concludes today's service.
Good afternoon. So next Sunday is our Hanamatsuri service, and we're going to have the Hanamido construction starting at 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. There is a BWA meeting prior to that, so there, you might notice some people here, some cars here before that. So if you're able to donate any flowers or help out with the construction of the Hanamido, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
No other announcements? This concludes today's service. Thank you, Sensei, for your Dharma message. Thank you, George Stau, for the ringing of the conch bell. Thank you, Ket Masuda, for the music, and thank you to the July Toban for the flowers and the offerings. Everyone is invited for light refreshments in the hall. For those of you who have not had a chance to Oshoko, you may do so before leaving the Honda.